This time at the Quick Speed Shop, I'm playing around with some wiring on the Model A Hot Rod Shop truck. Alright, so here, this is the wiring harness that originally was on the truck. I've fed it back through the firewall here, and I've got to lay it down around the front crossmember, get that laid out. I've also dragged the wires up onto the top of the engine. I've got my wires for my coil, which mounts right here, and I've got the wires run up for the alternator, which isn't hooked up yet, but all that's kind of in place. But I've got some big wiring to change on the inside of the cab. I got to wire in a new ignition switch, a new headlight dimmer switch, and a new turn signal switch on the new style column, the new old style column I put in here. So let's go inside the cab, and we'll dig into the wiring for that. Alright, so when I originally built this truck, I didn't have this column in, because in the last video I just put that in there. I had a regular GM column, the big one, you know, with the key in the side and all that. And so it's wired up to plug into a factory GM column, but now that I've switched to this early style column, there's obviously no plug on it. It's just a straight shaft here. And so what am I going to do? So I need turn signals, I need an ignition switch, I need a headlight dimmer. So this wire here was the headlight dimmer switch, which was on the turn signal stock. So I've got to hook that up. So I've got an old floor mount dimmer switch here, the clicker type. And it won't plug directly into here because I got to change the plug out. But I'm trying to think where to mount this. It's too tight down here by where my feet go to get my foot onto like a normal car. So I'm thinking about mounting it up here, which you probably can't see because the column's in the way, but mounting it up here to the side of the cowl where I can just reach over and click it, or I might mount it up like to the bottom of the dashboard so I can reach up and click it, or hide it up here under the dash rail and just have it stick out somewhere, or I might put it down here where I can reach down and click up my hand, but I'm not going to be able to do it with my foot because there's not enough, the footwork's too tight in here. So these three wires I gotta run for that. So the next thing is ignition switch, which was these two connectors here, and how that worked is on the GM column. As you turn the key, there was a rod that went down the side of the column, and it pushed a switch which plugged into these. This gives you your battery power, your ignition power, accessory power, and then start. So I've got an old school regular old ignition switch here, which I'm going to mount either right here under the dash, or maybe if it'll fit in this hole in the center of the instrument cluster here. This key is just a dummy key. This is the original pop-out ignition switch for the Model A. And I've just got this South African keychain that when I was in South Africa I got. This has been hanging on here for 12 years. So I might put the switch here and have the key sticking out of this hole, but I might also use that for a horn button because I also don't have a horn button now. So I might put a momentary switch here for the horn button. That's probably what will go there. So I'm probably going to make a tab to mount the ignition switch up down here. So I'm going to have to, these are all, obviously these connectors aren't going to bolt onto here, so I'm going to have to cut these terminals off or make a connector to plug into this that I can plug into the ignition switch. And then the final step is, this is your big multi-function switch here for all the turn signals, the brake light switch, the horn switch. If you had wipers on the column, it would be in there and all that, which this doesn't. So I've got the, what I'm going to do for that is I've got a Signalstat 900 switch here, which is going to go and clamp onto the column over here, something like this. And to make the turn signal work, I click down here and click up here. And, you know, click it to the right and to the left. If you want a flasher, you can pull this out, I think. Yeah, they'll give you hazards, and then you click that and it cancels it out. You can wire it to light up the indicator light. I don't think this one's got the pilot hooked up to a flasher to light that up. But this is going to clamp onto the side of the column over here somehow. And I've got all these wires that I've got to get plugged into here. The key to saving my bacon is here is I went, just nailed on a bolt. That was good. This is a car side of the GM harness, which I have here. And then this is the column switch. I was in the junkyard and I cut this out of a car that was all mangled anyway, so I cut this out. So now I've got the male end for the switch, so I'm going to use my schematic and I'm going to graft the male end of this onto this Signalstat 900. Then I can plug this in directly like this into here, and I have to change any of these wires. And then this will tuck up under the dash like that. When it's done, the wires will come down the column and you won't see that. And these will be up in the dash, so all the wires will disappear again here, back like it was. So that's what I'm working on. A little miscellaneous wire in here. I've got the pedals put back in. The gas pedal's loose here. I've got to put the carburetor on the engine. The clutch pedal and brake pedal are in. I don't have the brake lines aren't run to the front yet. I'm going to wait for my disc brake kit to do that. So I can't step on the brake pedal. The clutch, I've been bleeding. It seems a little soft, but it's coming up here. I think it's working. So I've got the clutch working like that. The shifter is back on here for the 4-speed. This is a T4 4-speed, which is like a T5, but there's no overdrive. It's just a 4-speed, and reverses down to the right, just like a T5. But I've got my shifter in there for that. The steering column's all hooked up. So making some good progress here on the inside of the Model A hot rod shop truck. Don't mind my disaster here. Everything's a disaster. So this is a up close shot of the schematic I got. So I've got my this corresponds to the this switch here. Actually, it corresponds like this. Letter P is this white one, the brake light switch. So this corresponds to this plug here. So I've got the male section, which I'm going to wire up here to the Signalstat 900. That'll wire onto this end of it over here. And then here's that ignition switch that's going to mount onto the dash. This is a good old made in USA one. It's used, but it should work good. So I got right now it's off. And then you got accessory back here. You got off where you can take the key out. And then you got ignition on, and then you got start, which is momentary over here, just like normal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip all these wires back and put butt connectors on them, and I'm going to cut this plug off of here. I'm going to connect all these wires to here, my schematic, and then I'll have my male plug to plug this into the existing harness on the truck. That'll take care of that. All right, so here I'm halfway through my my wiring here of the pigtail to the switch. I'm just using simple red butt connectors, stripping the wire back and using the butt connector. I've also added some heat shrink tubing here that I can slide up over when I'm done and cover up the butt connector with some heat shrink tubing to give it a little extra protection. So I've got 3 of them done so far. I'm up to this wire here, which goes to this yellow wire. This is the flasher signal, and then I've got the last 2 what is that, left front, right front turn wires here. This wire here is a horn switch, makes ground, so I'll have a momentary switch out here, and when I push the button in, it'll go from ground through here and make ground for the horn, and then make the horn work. And then this wire is for the blue pilot wire that's not used in the Signalstat switch over here. I'm just going to leave that loose in the harness, and if this doesn't work correctly, then I can hook this up, because I looked at my Model A Sport Coupe, and I have this wire hooked up, and it's running this style switch, but the wiring schematic I got says you don't need to hook it up, so I'm going to leave it loose for now, and then if it doesn't work, when I get the all the lights and all that put on the truck, I'll hook it up then. Bam, I used my garage sale heat gun. Got this all shrunk up real nice. Look at that. Bam, we're ready to go. And I went and I dug in my stash and I found the factory style spring clip that goes around the column, so I can clamp this thing right on here soon. Alright, I'm making a piece of sheet metal for the ignition switch. We got a piece of 18 or 20 gauge sheet metal here. I'm boring a 3/4 inch hole in it right here for the ignition switch to go in. Got my boring tool here. Let's get that going. Just like that. Ignition switch. Aha, look at that. Perfect. We'll poke right through there. And then this little aluminum scutcheon piece or trim piece locks it right down like that. line the key up. Bam. So I'm gonna break a bend on this dotted line here, right here with the brake, and then I'm just gonna round off the edges of this with the Beverly shear, and I'll have a nice little mount for this ignition switch. Just like that. Actually, let me take I'll mark out a line here and here. I'll trim this around here as well. And I want to trim this down a little bit. Use the lid off an aerosol can to make a nice little semicircle on here. Bam! Look at that. I'll take it and I'll break this up on this dotted line. There we go, nice little mount for the ignition switch. This will just mount up under the dash/gas tank in here and give me a nice spot to mount the ignition switch. I'll probably just use two screws and just zip screw this thing right up in there. It'll be perfect. All right, here we go. I got it mounted up. Obviously, I haven't painted it yet, but I will paint it probably flat black or gloss black or something. But here it is here. And these are the ignition wires. I just got to cut these plugs off here for the GM column that was in. I'll cut those off and I'll put ring terminals on here. And I'll just put the corresponding wires to where they go on the back of this, so I'll tie that up. I've also got the turn signal switch here mounted on the column. It's kind of shadowy in here, but I've got both ends of my pigtail here, so I can go ahead and pull these wires back here, and all this will go up under the dash. So get those out of the way, and this will be mounted up permanently. So imagine these wires aren't here, but I get in and I stick my key in, pump the gas, turn the ignition on, hit it with the starter. Oh, I loosen. I gotta tighten the switch up a little bit more, but you get the idea. Hit it with the starter, let off, it's running, and I take away. So, boom, that's almost done. I'll just paint her up and get these wires terminated, and this ignition switch will be ready to rock and roll. Boom, 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 boom. Alrighty then. Alright, check this out. I got my wires here. Unfortunately, I need some yellow ring terminals for the 12 gauge wire here, so I can't hook up the ignition switch yet. So I went over here, which you probably can't see because the column's right in the way, dang it. Well, here. I took the headlight switch and I mounted it up to the bottom of the dash right here in the corner by here, so when I'm sitting in here driving and I just need to hit the high beams, I can come over here and click the dash and then click it back off. It's right next here, and even in the dark I can feel where it is real easy. So that'll be good. I got that all hooked up, so the only thing I got left to do for the wiring under the dash is hook up the ignition switch, and then I've got to get a momentary switch to go in the hole here in the original instrument cluster. That'll be my horn button. I'll just push it in. It'll make ground contact. It'll blow the horn on the wires and the connector down here that was also feeding this. So I'll get a momentary switch here. Click. That'll be my horn button, because there's no horn in this column. The wheel's just solid. So pretty much got the wiring all wrapped up inside the cab. The only thing I got to do is out front is I got to rewire some of the wires up when I put the change the headlights out. I'm putting different headlights on this, and I'm going to have different turn signals. So when I get around to that, we'll do some wiring on that, and then I also got to do a little more wiring in the back. But I like how this came out. Everything's easy to reach there, and turn the key here. Everything's going to be easy to reach and make it work good. So pretty much did all my switching over I got to do here in the cab. Alright, so when I get my ring terminals here, I'll be able to finish up this wiring and button everything up. I'm also going to paint the sheet metal tab for the ignition switch. I'll paint that up, and it'll pretty much wrap all the wiring up in the cab, and we'll be on to the next step. So I guess that's it for the end of this episode on the Model A Hot Rod Shop Truck. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm putting out new videos every Wednesday and Saturday. Hit the bell for alerts, tell your friends, and as always, we'll see you right back here at the Quick Speed Shop for more working on the Model A Hot Rod Shop Truck.